Redundancies. They can either feel like a complete shot out of the blue or the end of an ever narrowing road. Either way, they're a fact of life. Today, we're going to talk about a few easy practical steps about how you can bounce forward when they happen to you. But before we get started, if you want career advice like this every week, subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so that you know every time we release a video about career success. I've spent the last 15 years coaching women in male-dominated fields on their careers, and I have seen my fair share of redundancies during that time. I'm Dr. Suzanne Doyle-Morris, and today I'm going to share with you 5 of the most important things you can do that have helped my coaching clients move past a redundancy, in most cases to get a job that was far better than the one they even had before. Sound good? Essentially, just this month, one client I have went from a tech firm that she was losing the love for to being hired just 6 weeks later after she was made redundant by a company also in the online learning space. So stay to the end and you'll also get a bonus tip that will help you think about how to get a career that will help you potentially avoid redundancy in the future. So let's start at the beginning. A YouGov poll says that about half of people feel proud to tell people what they do for a living. And that is certainly true for most of my clients. So how do you cope when it's suddenly gone? Oddly enough, even if you didn't love your job, it can still be a shock to the system to see it gone. If so, that feeling is completely normal. The first practical thing to do is to recognize that you are likely to go through 7 stages of grief. Now, these are stages that we more readily assume are related to the death of a loved one. But with many of my clients, it is like a little death of their job, but also in some cases, that sense of identity. It will start with shock and denial, moving through to depression, maybe loneliness, and eventually ends at acceptance. All of these 7 stages are completely normal and will happen to you. Just as you wouldn't tell a friend whose partner had just died to man up, go easy on yourself and realize that all of these stages will come and go, potentially for months at a time, but you will ultimately get through to acceptance. The next hands-on thing to do is give yourself more time on a hobby or something that doesn't define you. One client of mine relied heavily on a choir that she was part of when she went through the ups and downs at work. They practiced twice a week, performed across the region. Let's be very clear, she was never going to make this a full-time job, but it gave her a completely different identity that she needed, particularly during hard times at work. It also meant that when she did find that new role, she wasn't tempted to overwork to exhaustion, a tendency that she'd certainly had before we started working together. You are more than just your role. And the people who have the easiest time moving past a redundancy are those who have many different ways to define themselves. Remember, you may be losing a job, but you're still a great friend, a great mother, a sister, a daughter, or, as in her case, a fantastic choir singer. If you even move past the relationships you have, you're still a great at yoga, baking, badminton, whatever floats your boat. Spend time on those identities to remind yourself that you are so much more than your job alone. So just for fun, tell me in the comments below, what other identities do you have that give you a sense of perspective outside of work? Well, for me, it's about being an adoring, but no doubt at times annoying wife. It's about being a daughter who invites her fun but crazy parents to stay with her for 8 weeks at a time. You heard me correctly. It's also about being the owner of a very spoiled cavapoo. Another practical step is to unlink your social media from the people you know at work, even if it's temporary. You may be linked to people by Facebook or other social media, And they will, particularly if you've done it well, have become friends over time. But let's be honest, this may be the time you need to disengage, step back while you lick your wounds. You don't want to see what they're up to, and you certainly don't want to fall victim to the "do they miss me yet" syndrome, which never looks good on anyone. Let's be clear, they are not a bad boyfriend. You're not breaking up with them forever. It's just while you can redefine yourself and re-engage with some new perspective and a better narrative about what next. Fourth, and once you've accepted the redundancy, it's time to start looking for a new job, but this time with a twist. Now, if it's been a while since you've been looking for a role, you're going to have to get used to a faster turnaround of roles. The rise of automation and new technologies means that there is no gold-plated watch anymore if you get to the end. And in reality, you probably don't want there to be in any case. I mean, well, the watch certainly would be nice, but it's better to buy it from your earnings of a job that you actually love than simply to stick at something simply to get to the end. The point is that successful people today have an adaptive mindset, and they recognize that their role, their job titles, their companies, their industries, their sectors, even the countries in which they work, may change faster than we've ever seen before. In fact, the fastest growing jobs today didn't even exist a few years ago. So job change, just like that redundancy, is about becoming the new normal. And the last practical thing is to work on your redundancy narrative. As you look for new opportunities, you're going to need to have a story of how you describe your last role and why you left. Now, most people realize redundancies are really common, but you're equally going to get much further if you can showcase what you learned, what you loved, and how you can transfer that to a new employer. Now, that will help anyone who's listening get an idea of what you're looking for now. Hindsight in this case is fantastic. A hint in creating your narrative is to fast forward yourself 10 years into the future. No eye wrinkle cream needed. And think through, how would I describe this period in my career and why I left in the future? I fast forwarded this process with one of my clients who worked in an online services space in the sporting world. Now, we thought through how she could explain her recent redundancy, but without the self-blame, the bitterness, or the sense of failure that can sometimes accompany a redundancy. Now, this was vital because she needed to start networking again. The truth is, people want to hear what you can do for their organization, not your particular slant on what went wrong at your last employer. If you're in this space, or think you will be soon, I'd totally recommend checking out my videos on how to write a CV and switching careers playlist that we've got. And here's that bonus tip. Get a mentor, even if you're now out of work. Most mentors, well, they too will have gone through their own redundancies. They can remind you how common they actually are, and they'll tell you how they coped, but only if you ask them. Because by now, they certainly will have had that brilliant hindsight that we talked about just a couple minutes ago. Mentors are completely brilliant for your career, and I've created a How to Find a Mentor in 5 Steps download that's the best way to introduce mentoring into your day-to-day working life, now or certainly after you get your next role. And I've given you the advice that I've used with thousands of clients because it really is the easiest way to start. All you need to do is click the link in the description and then enter your email address. Now, you're going to want to start to subscribe to my channel to get all the other tips that will help you get your career on track. I'd recommend first checking out our coaching and mentoring playlist, then moving over to the switching careers playlist because it's so useful for anyone looking for a new job. And if you feel this video has helped, then let me know with a big yes, helpful, in the comments below. So go easy on yourself through this process, whether you saw it coming or it was a complete shock. Take your time through the steps, and I guarantee if you follow this advice, you're going to be back on track in no time. Good luck.